So, welcome everyone to our Fastlane webinar regarding automating infrastructure with CloudFormation. My name is Grisha Eckert, and I'm a freelancing DevOps consultant and an authorized AWS instructor. I'm in the field for quite some years right now. So I think 2012 I was using AWS and continuing to using it in practice and in big enterprises. Okay, let's also talk about Fastlane for a bit. As you see, Fastlane is a training partner and provides a lot of trainings. So Fastlane is an experienced, award-winning training provider with a wide range of training methods, such as classroom training, flex, or e-learning. Fastlane is particularly specialized in the area of cloud, cybersecurity, digital transformation, and mobility. Since I'm a trainer for Fastlane, I can, of course, definitely recommend Fastlane as a specialist for technology and business training and consulting services. Okay, so good company. Now let's go on and continue with the actual part over here. So this is going to be a module that is taken out of the AWS Associate certification preparation training. We do have an architecting on AWS training there to give you 3 days of instructor-led methods in the classroom, where you would do, having slides, some demos, and then working on the labs. I've taken the part module number 9 out of this to show you how automation works, and I think this is a good intro into one of those trainings. So let's just start. So in the course that we have, in the AWS architecting course, what we are trying to show you is how to evolve your architecture from a very small example and then going right down to the big architecture that you're going to have at the end of your journey. And module 9, our fictional company that we are working for, needs to start automating in order to keep growing. So they've got many different architectures, and they need to have a consistent way to deploy, manage, and update those infrastructure items. So, and this is where automation comes in. And when you want to automate stuff, we need to look into the reasons why we should do so, right? So before you automate things, you need to work manually. So doing work manually in a data center is it's really bad working. But some people have to do it. But with the cloud, you got much more nicer interface when you can work through. So you pick yourself, your console when you are in AWS. You pick yourself your management console, and this is a graphical user interface where you can then easily configure your whatever your architecture is going to be, like picking storage and then picking the network resources and then setting up some instances, which are the servers of the cloud, and also build databases. And this all, this is a good process. And when you are in the course, you will be doing a lot of labs that will guide you to clicking through the console. But since we do not have those labs in here, I will show you how to do this in the console, just for a short intro, so that you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm now in the management console in the AWS environment. This is one of my environments in Frankfurt. And from here on, I can do, provision some resources. So there's a lot of services available. So you can see here, we got compute services like EC2. We got clusters like container management, like Kubernetes. We do have other type of things like storage, S3 storage, RDS, databases, Dynamo database, and so on. So we got a lot of tools, and those tools, each of those services has got resources of themselves. So plenty of resources in each service. And when we want to provision those services, this can get quite complex. Let's just start by building one instance, one server, just for the sake of it, just to show you what is needed to do it manually. So we go to EC2, where we provision our instances. And then we would typically say, okay, let's launch an instance. And when we launch an instance, the server, what you need to specify first is the operating system. You need to say, okay, this is going to be my Amazon Linux or Red Hat Linux or SUSE Linux, type of flavor you want to choose. We're just picking the one here just for the purpose, and then select it. Now, the second choice that you get is your instance type. So you'll have to say, okay, what type of instance do I want to provision? Pick one of the sizes, and you see is a plentiful of those instances. They are ranging from small to very, very large, like 192 gigs of RAM, for example. I'll just pick a small one for the purposes over here. You'll get the picture. And then you need to configure some details, right? So how many instances do I want to launch, in which network I want to place the server, and many more things that we're not going to talk about today. I'm going to point out this place over here called user data. This is where you can put in some bash script, some Linux scripts in order to start your first start of your instance after being first created is going to execute these commands. We're going to populate this in the next step, so I will want you to show you. Okay, once you filled out all this info, what you then have is a an overview screen where you can say, okay, everything is okay so far. So I missed a step. Let's go back. So, configure security group, and we missed the one with the storage over here. So we have to specify the storage. And then once we got storage up and running, we can go and add some tags. It's always good to specify tags. Tags are useful to give you an info of what server you are, which team is it belonging to. I'll just use a simple team tag that says that this is going to be a dev A team tag. And we will have to provide a security group, which is basically a firewall that's going to allow somebody to access the instance. And I'll use my own IP address to be allowed to access the instance. And once you're done, you can review it, and then you can say, okay, I want to launch that server. You need to specify a key. In order to access the server, you need to specify its private and public key. So this is going to be your key pair. It's ID RSA. This is one that I already got in my environment saved in here. So I'm going to use this one. And then you say launch. Okay. Now the instance is being launched, and you can see it here. And this is how it all works, right? This is how you manually click around. Now imagine you have to provision 20 servers. Like you have to go and click through all that stuff. And I didn't even fill out all the the parts that are actually needed, like the correct VPCs, the correct security groups, how the servers are being interconnected. And then we got so many other services that we need to choose from, like storage and whatnot. So it's a plenty of services, and clicking all this together is going to be very time consuming. Now the server is up and running and we have it available, but that was just a manual process. So now let's see what we can do about and how can we go about it if we do some automation behind this. So I'm going to switch back to this part over here. Now, as you saw, this was a kind of like a very error-prone situation, right? I clicked on the wrong button and suddenly I was on the wrong screen and I missed something. And this is how people work, right? We are not very good in repeating manually stuff that could be automated. Actually, the machine for doing this. And also, it just doesn't scale. So you just cannot take me and let me provision 100 machines in this kind of way. It's not going to work. I'll just drop that at some point. And after you've provisioned all of your complex infrastructure, how do you version this? I mean, which version is it available currently? Do not have any means of keeping track of in which version you have provisioned your servers. You could keep track of it using labels, but that's not very convenient. Also, changed what in your environment is going to be very difficult to follow. There is a service called CloudTrail for AWS. It's going to record every API call. That's more a security type of an audit type of thing where you can audit who is doing what in your environment. It's not so much for operational purposes where you need to see who's doing what in your environment in terms of an overview, a quick overview into who's doing what, and forbidding people doing stuff that they shouldn't do. And then when you've got multiple environments, like for example, prod, dev, test, and you do not have version control, it's going to be very difficult to keep those environments consistent. So consistency is very important. If you have ever deployed software on some of those instances, you know, things sometimes just don't run if the instance is not configured correctly. So if I make a mistake on one of my 20 instances that I have launched, even if they should be identical, they are probably not. And history shows us, I'm coming from a big environment like you know, enterprises, and we launched a lot of environments there, and I haven't seen a single environment which was duplicated that was exactly the same, because people just make mistakes. It's not the same people working, and as soon as complexity increases, they will have really you know, hard time in doing all this. So we get a lot of risk from this manual processes. This is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid those risks. And if you read this, if you have to manually change stuff, putting yourself at risk, and manual processes are risks without reward. There is no reward out of doing stuff manually. For experimenting, super nice to set up some environments quickly and then to have a look at this. You know, cloud is an environment where you can do a lot of experimentation, which is super nice because it's so easy to spin up stuff. But at some point in time, you just have to say, okay, now it's enough. You know, experimenting, joking around. Now we have to do the real stuff. And the real stuff is going to be automated. Right? So this is where automating your infrastructure comes into picture, and we will look into one specific part of it, which is called AWS CloudFormation. AWS CloudFormation service that is provided for free, basically. So the stuff that you're launching with CloudFormation is going to cost you something, but the actual service doesn't cost you anything. What you basically do is you provide a so-called template, which is a description of your environment, your infrastructure, and then you hand over this document to CloudFormation as a service, and then it's going to create and build those all of those described resources in an automated manner. So you specify what to build in a list, and then this is exactly what's going to happen. So if you look into more detail, now this files that you're going to specify are going to be so-called CloudFormation templates. These are available in two flavors. One flavor is JSON, and the other is how it looks like. So these two formats are basically identical. So YAML is a bit of a superset of JSON, so it might, you know, be a bit more terse in the way you specify stuff. As you can see here, a lot of parentheses and you know, quotes are just missing here. It's a bit easier to write. However, you have got all of the indentation to serve as a, you know, as a bracket for those indentations. And those indentations have to be at the correct place. So when you're copy pasting stuff around, you know, we will do a lot of snipping around snippets and then pasting them in, and you just have to be very sure that you are at the correct level. Otherwise, you're going to have a syntax error. With JSON, this might be a little bit easier to handle. However, as you see, it's not so easy and not so nice to read. But basically, both are identical. So you pick one of those flavors. Amazon have started out with using JSON a lot, and then now recently they're changing using YAML. We will be mostly using JSON for today. And yeah, then we will have to specify our resources. And this is just a basic specification over here. This is how a resource actually looks like. It's a so-called attribute. So the attribute is called resources, and resources is what we want to provision. So everything that we want to provision is going to be resources. Now, this resource is going to be named Hello Bucket. It's going to be of type AWS S3 bucket. So there's basically a folder in this huge storage space where you can put unlimited storage and save all your stuff in S3. So this is how it's going to be created, right? You specify the resources, then what the name of the thing, and then the type of it. This is going to be a specific resource over here. And this is how it looks in YAML. Now, once you've got these files specified, what you can do with them is you can now put them into your source code repository, which is nice because now you can do, you know, You can track changes. You can see who is doing what in your file, who made which change, who what did they comment on the commits when they're committing the stuff into the repo. You can do deltas between different versions if something changed and you understand what changed. Now you're reasoning at the file level, which is what we call infrastructure as code, which is really nice because now we have got all the software tools that we have in place. Check this, is it correct? Does it behave well? So there's a lot of stuff that we can do as a software developer right now. It's much more powerful than just clicking around in the management console. Now, once we got our infrastructure as code built, so that's the architecture template, we can put it to the CloudFormation engine, and it's going to create a stack. A stack is a representation of that template, and it's also going to create the actual resources, and it's going to track them in the architecture stack. And we will have a look into how this works just right now so that you can have a better understanding. All right, so let's switch over to my code editor, and just for a short heads up, can everybody read this? Is this readable for your screens? Okay, excellent. Okay, so then let's just head on from here. Start with a really basic one. So brackets on, brackets off, and there it is, the resources attribute. And the column. The column now specifies what is in the resources. So let's open this up. Now you see here, actually, I've got one resource specified. It's only one resource, and we want to start small. So what is the kind of resource over here? So let's click this one off. So it's going to be of type EC2 instance, right? And okay, there's a lot of those instance types. And I'll show you in the documentation how this actually looks like when you are trying to understand all of your other types of things that you want to instantiate. So let's switch over to the documentation. Let's open up that AWS CloudFormation, and then you say documentation. There you have it. So it's going to give you the correct results. Everything is nicely indexed, so you will get to see the correct documents. You can download the one as PDF or as HTML. And now you see everything, that the whole service is being described over here. So I think there's quite a few hundred pages of documentation, and we will not have the chance to go through all of this. I would say, I guess that a typical CloudFormation full understanding would require a minimum of 12 to 15 hours to go through, and we just have 1.5 hours. So let's pick one of these things. And first of all, I just want to show you that there is a template reference. In the template reference, you can see the resource specification. And there is a lot of resource specification parts in here. There's resource attributes, there's intrinsic functions, and there's the resource and the property reference. So let's pick the reference here, and let's just scroll down to EC2 because we want to provision an instance. Now, this is now the actual resource. You can see there's plenty of different resources available just for the one service that's called EC2, like the subnet, spot fleet, routes. And if you're into networking, we do have a webinar in 2 weeks from now. I'll show you at the end of the session that we do have more of these webinars coming. I'll just a teaser. Let's go back, and I'll show you this at the end, so don't worry. So we do have a lot of those resources over here, and a lot of networking resources. So, but now let's just have a look at one. It's going to be the instance. Now you can see everything that you can specify for the instance, right? And if you're interested in images, just click on this and you will see what it is. That's the AMI ID, which is basically the operating system that you have to specify. And this is a required field, right? It's really required, so you have to put it in there. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to spin up the instance. Okay, that's just a short glimpse at the documentation for the reference purposes. We will have a deeper look later on. Now, we go back to our. Now we saw there's a few of the properties that we need to understand. And I've already filled out these properties, right? So we want to start an image, and I just took the same image ID that I used when launching the server manually. I also picked the instance type, which was T2 micro. That's the size of the server. Also picked the same key that I'm using in my environment. And yeah, that's basically it, except that we need to put in some EBS storage. So that's the hard drive kind of in SSD. So we have got an EBS volume. We will 8 gigabytes, and we're gonna use this for our server. Now we have got everything that we need in order to start a server automatically using CloudFormation. All right, so let's just switch over to the CloudFormation tab again and go to services. And CloudFormation is under management and governance over here, but you can also type in CloudFormation. You're gonna get the service. Now you're in CloudFormation, and now let's begin by creating a stack. I already have a few stacks in here, and I'll show this one here later on. Let's create a stack. Now we get multiple options over here. We can do just created stack because it's already finished. We can use a sample template, or we can go using the template designer, and I'll show you both options down the road. Now we do have a template available, so let's just upload it. Just choose the file. We're going to use the simple one over here as JSON, and we're going to upload it. And then let's say next. We have to specify a stack name. So this is going to be a let's not forget the tags. Tags should be specified for any resource. Netflix is running a janitor monkey that is searching for this tags and is removing the resources that do not have tags assigned because they're not able to assign them proper teams. Let's forget about all the rest, and I'll show you later. And then we have the review page. So before we're creating all the stuff, we get a few information on what we're actually doing. And one of these is also the cost estimation. So let's just click on the cost estimator. Now this is the estimated cost that we are going to get billed at the end of the month, which is $9.81 with using the service. And if you see, we are currently in Frankfurt. So this is my region where I'm using it. If my instance is running 24 hours a day, this is going to cost me $9.81. Yes, all that info. And I'll show you later that, of course, now that you have got dynamic resources, you don't have to run them 24 hours a day. Because let's just say this is a testing environment, so you'll basically use it from 8 to 8, or depending on what your work hours are. You're working on weekend, I suppose. So you could use this. You could just, bring down this cost by using these resources as dynamic resources. It's not your server anymore, and you can spin it up and spin it down quickly. And CloudFormation templates for all this. The whole environment is going to be specified in the CloudFormation template, at least up to the infrastructure level. And it's going to be easy for you to just throw it away at the end of the day and just rebuild it the next day. We will talk about this also, called immutable infrastructure. Okay, so now that we've got the cost, let's just remove that window and let's just say create the stack. All right, so now the stack is being created, so it's create in progress. You can see here there's multiple stacks that I already have, and now this is the new one. And the events tab over here is showing me which events are currently being executed. You can see here we got a creating process for the server stack, and then we got a creating process for our resource, which is now initiated, right? So it means it's in progress. You can see here it's blue in progress. Now it's create complete, so the instance started loading, and we got it available. So it's there, and it's IP address, and it's up and running. So now we've got the events done. You can see here the stack is complete, create complete. Now if you go to stack info, you see all of the necessary information for the stack. It's got the stack ID, that's a so-called ARN, that's the Amazon identifier for all of the resources. Thing for account number and so on. And the time created it, if it's complete, the tags, all the stuff. Events we already showed you, that's kind of like the log of the things that's going to happen in terms of time-wise. And you got the resources. Now this is the actual resources that you are building. This is corresponding with your file, and we have just one resource, so that's the resource over here, and we can in there see it running. Okay, so that's the server. It's still initializing. It's available, up and running, and there it is. Right. Okay. Now how does CloudFormation know that this server is the one, and how does the server know that it's belonging to the CloudFormation template? And just click on the tags over here. So that's all the tags that are being specified. And as you can see, the tag that I have given to the CloudFormation template has been passed down to the actual resource. So the instance is inheriting the tag. It's also got some automated implicit info, which is the logical ID of the stack in the stack. So this is what it's called in the stack. It's got a stack ID. That's the stack ID, and then it's got a stack name. So now you know that this instance is actually belonging to a stack and is not a free-floating instance. So better you shouldn't change this one over here, and we will show what happens if you do change this in just a few minutes. All right, so now that we've got our instance up and running, it's here. Let's just continue with the rest of the tabs. We didn't specify any outputs and parameters, so I'll do this with the next example. There is the template field. So this is the template that we have provided to CloudFormation to build all of those resources. Here it is. You can see it. You can check if everything is okay. And we will have a look at change that also in the next section of the module. What you can do here now is create another stack, or you can do some other stuff. I'll show you in a minute. You can update the stack if you've changed something, and you can also delete it. And because this was just a nonsense stack, let's just delete this. And it's going to be deleted in the background. Delete in progress. You look into the events, you see it's delete in progress, and this is how it goes. Now that was a really simple example of doing a CloudFormation template. Let's just jump back and let's just do something more. So that's not the complete structure of a file. Template structure, by the way, this is how it looks like in YAML. So basically identical. It's just a bit cleaner. It looks nicer. This is more computer nerdy looking. Okay, now let's go back to the template structure. And this is how the template should be structured completely. Only required field in the template is actually the resources fields. So we specified this one and it worked. But it's a best practice to all the format version over here. That's the only one. So you just copy paste that tag into your actual environment. So let's just do this. Just put them in here just for the sake of, for cleanness and to have everything nicely built. And then let's go in here and let's see what else we have. So after resources, there's also outputs, parameters, mappings, conditions, and metadata. And these are just a few of these. I've just picked the most prominent ones, and this is what I'm going to explain in the lecture. You can also extend CloudFormation in multiple ways, and there are some really nice ways of extending it using serverless infrastructure, which is the so-called SAM serverless model from Amazon. And if you're interested in this one, the second webinar, which is going to be next week, is going to talk about this. Probably not too deep, but it's going to show how it works. Really nicely includes Lambda functions into the CloudFormation. Okay, so now that we've got the done over here, that you understand the structure, let's just extend our template by just using a little bit of extension so that we can do something more. Okay, so let's pick outputs. Right, so output is also apart from the template structure. So let's pick this, and it's at the same level as the I don't know what this is indented wrong in the wrong way. Doesn't look too good. So I'll just remove this. Okay, so let's just go back. Now this is going to be at the same level as the resources, so it's going to is called outputs. Now the outputs is what comes out of your template once it's done. What you want to show to your user when the CloudFormation template is ready. So when you're spinning up a server, typically you would want to give to the user the address of the server. Exactly this is what we're going to be doing here. So what we're going to be doing is specifying an output, and as the value, we're going to pick a so-called implicit function. We're gonna look at this one in a second. So this is called a specific function for get attribute, and this is an implicit function for joining stuff. The get attribute function, what it does is it gets a dynamic attribute out of another resource. So the resource, this is the name of the resource, which is this one here. I'm gonna fetch the public DNS name out of this resource. But as you can see, there is no property named public DNS name. And the reason for this is going to be happening at runtime. So once the CloudFormation template engine is running and provisioning the actual resources, it's going to provide a name, a DNS name for the instance. And then the field is going to be existing. So what we're getting is a dynamic field called public DNS name out of the server, fetching this out of this in here, and we are concatenating, that's a joining with HTTP. Basically, we're just getting the HTTP address of this that is being built. Okay, so this is one part. Let's just extend the whole thing for another part. I showed you the user data. So let's take the user data, which is a part of the properties of a AWS instance, and let's just put it at this exact level. So now what this is doing is it's extending our instance, and it's joining user data to it. So this is the way how you do user data joining. So you're basically specifying a bash script that's going to run startup time. So when the first time the instance is going to be provisioned, this script is going to be running. So for installation purposes, this is what you would use. So what you're doing here is just concatenating strings of your bash script. So what the script is going to be doing is it's going to install a web server, Git, and then it's going to download some Git stuff, and it's going to unpack it, and then in the web folder, and then it's going to run the web server so that we can see some response. Okay, so it's going to be the user data. So our instance is going to be pre-populated with some stuff. Now you can use this for installing little pieces of scripts in order to get your server prepared, but don't overdo it. So this is a brutal way of specifying configuration. There's other configuration management tools that are much more useful for this, and I'll show you one possible way of working when we are looking in the complete example, which is kind of nice. It's called Cloud Init from CloudFormation, and yeah, so just don't overdo it. If this is failing, your instance start is going to fail. This is not what you want to do. So you want to provision your instance, and then you want to do the installation. Okay, so now we got our software provisioned. Let's just pick something else. Let's just make it available to the outside world, because if you do not specify a so-called firewall or a security group, this is how it's called in AWS lingo, and the security group is another resource, so we need to put it at the resource level. So going to be the first resource is going to be EC2 instance, and then we did a comma in here, and then we specify the second resource, which is a security group. Basically, a firewall. What it says is open up the port 80 TCP for everyone. So that's a notation for. So now everybody can access this machine using port 80, which is what we want to do because this is a web server, and we're not restricting it to anybody, to anyone. We're allowing everybody. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to assign this security group to the instance. There is a field which I know, which is in the properties, that is called security groups. This is how you assign a security group. So typically, you now have to have the ID of the security group, but you do not have the ID yet because the ID is going to be created when the resource is going to be created. So how then can you access one of the fields in here that is not yet there because it's dynamic? You can use the so-called reference. So you're referencing the instance security group, which is this one, and then you're referencing its ID and putting it in here. So this is dynamically done now by CloudFormation. CloudFormation executes this script. What it's going to do is going to try to do everything in parallel. Parallelizes as much as possible. However, once you've got a situation like this where you're referencing another piece of resource in one of your resources, this will show a dependency to CloudFormation. So CloudFormation will know, okay, this is now has to be done in the first place, and then when this is finished, only then can I use the ID of the security group to provision my instance. Otherwise, it's going to be, not provisioned correctly. And this is how to specify dependencies between two instances. Also, not only specifying the dependency, but it also takes the values. Sometimes you have the situation that you do not have any referential dependencies. Then you have to specify this on yourself. The attribute is called depends on, and you can say that a specific instance depends, for example, on another instance. A typical scenario would be a database plus a server. You want to first provision the database, and then you want to provision the web server, because otherwise you will not know which IP address the database has. But to do this correctly, it's best to use those explicit depends on attributes. Okay, but for us, that's enough. We got it all done. So let's just take this this piece of code and let's just put it into a stack. Okay, so let's create a new stack. As you can see, the old stack is already deleted. So we need to refresh the whole thing. So it's gone. So it's going to be deleted completely. Now let's create a new one. Template is ready. Let's upload the template file. Let's choose the file. It's the same one. And then let's go ahead. Give it a name, for example. Yeah. Same cost. There it goes. Now it's going to be provisioned, right? So we can see and follow what's happening, right? It's going to see, okay. Now first, the security group is going to be provisioned. Now that it's ready, you can see that the resource is available in here, right? It's got its corresponding ID. We can just have a look in it. That's the security group that we created. It has an inbound rule, which is the firewall for opening up HTTP 480 from everyone. Okay, now this is being used to create the instance. And the instance creation is in progress. It's going to take a second, and after it's finished, we will see that it's done. And once it's done, we will have the outputs filled out, which has happened just in the when I was talking. But now this is the output that we have created. So you remember we have joined two strings, and that was the DNS name. Now let's just click on this one and try to see if there is there's already the server's already running. It's not running yet, let's just wait until it's done. Create complete. Should actually be running. Let's just see. It's still initializing, so take a while. Probably it could be working right now. Yeah, now it is working. It's time to play a game. So it's an open source, and you know probably. Okay, so enough wasting time. Good. Let's go back. Let's see how this is all playing out. Now that we've got our stack provisioned, let's talk about the relationships again, right? So we do have a stack that is keeping track of all of the resources. And the resources are provisioned in your environment. So when you are, you know, say in a specific region and you've got a specific account, when you look into your EC2 instances, you will find your instance running just here, right? So this is the instance that just spun up, still initializing. And here it is. So somebody could be, you know, either by mistake or by doing something harmful, they could be doing some changes in here. And this is what we want to, you know, avoid. Once you've got provisioned your resources using CloudFormation, you don't want to, you know, lose those instances and then have it manually updated. So, but let's say this happens, right? So somebody goes in here, and this is a bad guy like me, and they wanna, you know, they wanna have full access to this server, and they just say, okay, I wanna add a rule to this security group, and I wanna do SSH into this, and I wanna open it up for everyone, and just wanna pick my own IP address, but still now I can enter to this server, I can do something bad or harmful. Or probably I'm not a bad guy. I just don't know what I'm doing. Right? So I'm opening up this port, and I should have opened it up in the CloudFormation template, but I did it over here, which is now a problem since now the reality, which is playing over here, doesn't is not kept track in the CloudFormation stack. So the CloudFormation stack doesn't know that I have executed this template. It still shows me the old security group ingress. It doesn't reflect the actual change. And the reason is that this is a one-way process. Now, what you can do still to get to the, you know, to the result that you want, you can say, I wanna see and detect drift. So when you detect drift, what's going to happen is CloudFormation is going to prepare the stack as it should be, with what's happening in reality. And once you're done, you can say, okay, I want to view drift result. And this is what you're going to see. You're going to see. You're going to see that the stack is now drifted. That the reality is different than what you saw. So now you see here, instances, it's in sync, but the instance security group is modified. Now let's look at the drift details. Drift details are going to show me what happened. So I have another security group ingress. Somebody added something, and you can see here what they added. Also, you can compare the two files in here, right? You can see the differences when you check it. You see exactly which part of the configuration has changed. Now there is, you know, two possibilities. Either the guy who was doing this in the EC2 console doing this on purpose. This was a correct way of doing stuff, but now the template that we uploaded didn't correspond to this. So how can we go about this? The problem now is that you do not know what actually is the best thing to do, right? Do we want to change this? So I'll just copy those changes in here. And then let's go and say this was a mistake. Somebody did some debugging on the machine, and they had to open up the port, and they should have closed it down again, but they didn't, right? So let's go to the instance. Let's go to the security group. Let's look at the group. Let's edit it again. Let's just do the correct thing. Let's just delete this. Let's say save. And then if you go back to the CloudFormation script again, our web stack, we can do the drift detection again. Now should see that both are in sync, which is good. Now, but those were the changes that you actually wanted to have. So, which was, copied the changes, if you remember, and I could just go in here and let's just say I want to just extend this by this at the correct level. Otherwise, it's gonna work. Okay, so now this is how it could look like if it was done correctly. And now, once we've got this, we can do the change process. So now, what we could do is, now we have changed the template, and now the stack is not up to date with the template again. What you could do is you could say update over here. That's not what you want to do, because update is just changing the stuff immediately. And this is one of the caveats from working with with CloudFormation. You have to be careful about what actually is it doing in the background, because it almost always deletes and modifies resources, which is sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it's not okay. So you want to understand what's happening. You're not going for update directly. You're going and you're creating yourself a change set for the stack. So a change set just keeps track of all of those changes before executing them. So it's like a dry run. You can upload a template, you choose the file. We took this one, and let's see, I made a mistake syntactically. Doesn't so, at least right now it doesn't. And this is how it's going to be named. So let's say security group ingress edit. And let's create a change set. Now, there was a validation error because I made a mistake when I didn't give it the change set name was. Okay, so I did a mistake by using the wrong name for the whole thing. It contained blanks, which of course is not good. Because it clearly specifies what you can add, right? You have to read first, then you do your execution. All right, so now that we've got the change set created, let's just have a look. That's the template. You can see the changes over here by seeing that there's a modification going on for a resource. It's the modification for the resource security group. It's got this physical ID. Right? And this is the actual change that's going to happen. And what's it going to do? It's going to modify the whole thing. Is it going to replace it? That's an important question that you're going to ask yourself. If this is false, it means it's not going to delete anything, and it's going to just modify it, which is good, because you want to keep all of the rest of your resources, like the machine, for example. You want to keep it running, at least if it's an important server to you. And then when you're done, you can say, okay, I want to execute this change set. Now that I understand what's going to happen, let's just execute it. Now, update is in progress, and it's going to be a quick one because it's just a security group. And it's going to update the whole thing. In the end, we will have our update executed correctly. Now, this is how you do changes, right? You don't go for update immediately. You just create yourself a change set, and with the change set, you can do, you can see what's going to happen before it's going to happen. Dry run. The update is complete. The stack is up to date, and all is good. And now, if this was the thing that we wanted to do, if the admin was actually correct in doing the stuff, now we've got the inbound rule ingrained in our template. Now, of course, we don't have any drift, and this is all configured correctly. So, if you're in a hurry and you're doing stuff, this is how you would need to be doing all this thing. And there's a question about if I am able to create a template out of an existing instance. And this is what we're going to be talking just in the next few minutes. So just delete the stack in here, web stack, and then this is how we're going to delete it, and then it's going to be deleted in the background. Now, CloudFormer is exactly what Ulrich was asking for. And this is the tool that is going to help us if we already got some environment already built in our infrastructure. Is there a way to get a template out of the existing infrastructure? Indeed, it is. So ways of doing this. There is a software as a service that you can purchase. You just purchase your share, but you have to give those guys your credentials for your environment, at least for reading, in order to get into your, to see what's in your infrastructure. Another way of doing this is by creating yourself a simple template. This is how it's being done. And if you're creating a sample template, there's a few options for simple stuff to see what's happening in your how to build a lamp stack, or how to build a more complex lamp stack, or for example a WordPress block in multi-AZ. And there's also this option for the CloudFormer. It's a beta version, still beta since years, but it's nice that it's existing. It's just a CloudFormation template. So if you click on next, you will have to build it in your environment, and it's going to spin up a server. And I've done this in the background previously. So this is CloudFormer stack that I already built. So now I'm just clicking on the CloudForm, and as you remember, in the outputs you can see what it's returning, and this is what the actual address is of this instance. And now let's open it up in a new window, and this is it. Right, this is now the CloudFormer, and it's going to give us a template out of our existing, or whatever you have in your region. It'll take a while. Then you can apply filters. So my first template, right? And let's search for EC2 resources. You can see here that's a process that's going to go through. So it's going to ask you for all and any of these stuff that you want to include into your template. Now I just click through all, the topics that are interesting for you. So I'm going to pick this VPC. Pick those things in here, like the subnets, internet gateway, and so on. For security groups, that's fine. The routing tables, ENI, let's just pick it like this. Just click through it quickly. Just take everything interesting. All right. And then at the end, now we are going through all of our environments, through all of these things. We can select which one we want to have, which one we don't want to have. And once we're done, this is what we get. So we get a CloudFormation template that contains exactly what we need in order to see what's in our environment. And then of course we would need to modify this a bit, because the naming here is a bit cryptic. That's the instance ID. So you probably want to make this better. Also, this is actually using the actual AMI ID, and we fix this somehow, because we will want to make this more general. Okay, so now that we've got the CloudFormer, you saw another way of building the CloudFormation template. While we are in building our CloudFormation templates, let's just look at another way of doing this. All right, so let's go and say stacks, create a stack. You can see here, create a template in Designer. So if you're a bit more of a visual guy, you can create a template in Designer, and this is going to make it a bit more graphical. So you still get your template, that's going to be your output, and you've got all of the resources over here that you can use, right? So in a typical scenario, I'll stick to the EC2 service, because it's the well-known service. In a typical scenario, what you want to provision is a VPC. And then inside that VPC, you would want to have a subnet. You drag in the VPC, you see at the bottom left arrow, there's already the VPC there. I'm letting the subnet go, and now I created the subnet in here. Now, because the subnet is inside the VPC, they've got a connection. And this connection is also reflected in here because now in the subnet, there is a VPC ID reference to the actual VPC, which is over here. Right. So now the next one, I mean, that we could be doing a lot of stuff. So let's not be too complex, but you put an instance. It's also going to be put into that subnet, which is nice. And you can say, okay, I want to have a volume, for example. If you've got a volume, you have to attach it to the instance somehow. And this is how you do it. The volume attachment, you just click on that bubble here, and it's going to give you the options what you want to attach it to. Those things that you can attach it to is green. So let's just let it go. And now we got the volume attached to that instance. And this is how you can build up your whole infrastructure using the CloudFormation designer. You can choose your favorite language, YAML. It will add some metadata to the whole thing. Like, for example, some specific IDs over here, and it's also gonna put in some metadata position because it has to know, of course, where you positioned your stuff around, right? So now you've got all of the positions realigned, and this is where they keep track. So it's being a bit more verbose than the other version, but you can easily delete that stuff if you don't want to use it. Once you're done, what you can do is create yourself a PNG, and so a screenshot for your slides if you want to, and you can of course save it. You can also open up other stuff from your file, so from your local file. So let's just open up this thing over here. Let's just see what it's built, and we will have a look into this in just a second. This is a more complex example of a environment that you could be building with CloudFormation. All right. So that was the third option of how you would be going about, writing doing stuff in here. There's some questions in here. So it depends. There's a question of will this new VPC in the region, or if it will provision the resource in existing. This is exactly what you can specify inside of CloudFormation. So if you want to put it in an existing VPC, this is what you need to tell CloudFormation to do. Or you create yourself a new one. So what I did just right now was to create a new VPC and then to put it in the region. And in this way, you have to specify, you don't have to specify the VPC. However, if you want to use a pre-existing VPC, what is the way to specify it? I mean, how do you say CloudFormation to use that VPC? You can do it this way, like we did over here. So we just took the image ID and we just took the hard-coded reference, right? So if you've got an existing VPC, you just have to have its VPC ID, and then you just put it in here and you access it directly. However, now your CloudFormation template is bound to be executed in your VPC because it's the only one with that ID, which is of course a bit brittle, and it's not going to be generalizable to other environments. This is the next step that we need to go about. So the next step that we need to do is we need to make this this whole file a bit more general so that we can use it in a different region. If probably you know, the AMI ID for an AMI is only existing in a single region. So the same operating system in another region is going to get another AMI ID. But this is only going to execute in the Frankfurt region. And also, if you look at other things like, for example, the instance type, now I'm already specifying what things to use, which machine type to use, and which key name. So we generalize this a bit. So to go back to the slides for a minute, let's just go through the rest of the slides. So this is what we saw. We in template, we put it into CloudFormation engine. We got a stack back, and that was our environment. And we also looked into how to do drift detection. Now, the benefits that we have using infrastructure as code is one of them is repeatability, right? Repeatability is really cool because now if I've got two development environments, so a second developer comes, I can just build them the same environment twice. It's repeatable, it's consistent, it's easygoing. I don't have to click around. Excellent. Usability, so you can use it for different purposes. You could be using it for another client or for your production environment or whatever you're doing. You have got code there. Code is easy to copy. Real instances are hard to copy. So this is why it's so cool. And if you're doing any changes, I also showed you how to do updates. You can see here how to enter security groups. And there they are, right? You just put in the security groups, you do an update, and off you go. But now we need to have the whole thing a bit more generalizable, right? We need to run in different accounts. We need to use different key names. We need to use one template, for example, for development and for a production environment. That would be nice because we just had one template. It would be really cool because now one template is, of course, easier to maintain and it's going to be doing the same things anyway. So why not, try to do something about this? Let's go back into code and let's see what else can we do, right? When we look into the template structure, we now have resources, we've got outputs, we got, and that's basically it. So we are missing parameters, mappings, and conditions. So let's go for those three. These are parameters over here. So I've got a few snippets that we can use, we can easily reuse later. For example, this is a parameter. So it defines an instance type parameter. The user is going to get asked to fill it out. So it's going to be a string. So the default value is going to be T2 micro, but there will be multiple allowed values. So it's going to be a pop-down menu where you can specify which of these machine types you allow. And once the user has selected one of those machine types, you can now reuse that parameter. It's called instance type parameter, and you can reference it. You can see down here, I'm launching an instance, and it's taking the instance type, but it's not taking the actual, T2 micro as we did before. It's referencing instance type parameter that is being specified by the user who is launching the CloudFormation template. Okay, so that was the string type. There's other types. There's a more specific one, like for example, as an AWS specific key name, where AWS is going to present you all of the keys for your SSH access already existing in your environment to select from. And the same you could do with your right? You could just say, okay, which type of what is the VPC where you want to provision this, and you can just type in the VPC ID, and then you can use this VPC ID if you want to launch your resources exactly in that VPC ID. But still, you can make it, assignable at the beginning of the launch of the CloudFormation template. Hopefully, this answers your question. Okay, and the next one is DB password. So that's also a parameter that you're going to specify at the beginning, but it's got no echo at the beginning, which is set to true, which means it's not going to echo the password back to you. It's going to just put those stars so that you can type in a password securely. Also, you can see here there are some conditions on the or restrictions on the password length. Its minimum is 1 and maximum is 41. You can specify this, and it's going to check before accepting the password. Also, there's a pattern matching process with regular expressions. And if you're not into this stuff, it basically just means any letter from A to Z and any capital letter from A to Z and 0 to 9 is going to be a valid password character, but nothing else. Okay, and then the last one is an example also doing an allowed pattern for the addresses. So this is a network address. Check for the network address correctly. Okay, so this is how to use parameters. Got the thing solved that in here we just used the image, the instance type, and we used the key name, for example. These problems are solved, but we haven't solved the image ID thing yet, and we need to look at this one also. And this is what the mappings are out there. Mappings are, you know, like dictionaries of infos. So in this case, what we will be doing is we will be taking the image ID out of this mapping. The mapping name is region map, this one here. And what we will do is we will call that intrinsic function from that's already existing in AWS that we can reuse. It's called find in map, and it's going to look into this map for the region and for this specific type of virtualization. It's going to go in here and say, okay, it's HVM64, and we want to launch it in US East 1. So this is the correct AMI ID, and you have to provide tables. And for the most of the operating systems that are, you know, sensible and reusable, Amazon will already provide you this. And then the only thing you have to do is just put in this snippet in here into your instance type. Okay, now we've got solved. You know, image ID is now not static anymore. The instance type is not static, and the key name is not static. So we've generalized quite a bit. But we need to go deeper, and one additional thing that we can do is we can specify conditions. So this is a condition that is going to check the equality of environment type, that's a variable or a parameter, and it's going to check it to equality with prod. So what is this environment type? It's defined over here as a parameter, and the user at the beginning of the CloudFormation stack is allowed to use the two values, prod or test. If it specifies test, this is not going to be true. And if it specifies prod, this is going to be true. So this condition is going to be true. Now when you set all of your resources, now you can give them this condition type in here. And the resource is only going to be provisioned if it is if the condition is going to be true. So mount point here is only going to be available when we are actually in prod. Same goes for the new volume. And this is how you would make things conditional. So for your prod environment, you can then specify those types of conditions in here. Okay. Then at the end, we will have another example in here. We will not go through this because we do not have enough time for this. But just for a short run through, what we will be doing is we will be creating an auto-scaled website, and we will be using parameters. So the user is going to be asked for the instance type, and they're going to be asked for the key name and for the SSH location. And after that, the rest of the things is going to run. It's going to map the stuff correctly, and it's going to launch the whole thing. And the rest of the stuff I will not go through. It's a bit more deep. It shows you that there is also a thing called Cloud Init, which is a kind of like a desired state management package built into CloudFormation, where you can install packages on the newly built hardware for updates and for initial setup. We won't have time to do this. So instead of doing everything in user data, you can now use this Cloud Init part, which is very much more robust and stable, and it's going to help you in a lot of cases. All right. So now that we've got all this complete, let's just go and let's just execute it inside CloudFormation. By the way, that's the diagram of what we're going to do. Let's just close this. Let's just create a stack. The name ASG stack. some of the options down here, like for example, the rollback on failure. When you are specifying this, it's by default it's on, which means if any of the resources creating in the CloudFormation tab, it's going to roll back. Rollback means all of the resources that are being created will be deleted again. So you will be left with a clean slate again. And this is quite convenient in production purposes because you don't want a CloudFormation script that is not, executing correctly to be leaving out some half baked stuff. You want to fail early, fail at the beginning, and as soon as possible. However, when you're doing debugging, you might be checking this disabled button here. Also, there's a thing called termination protection, and the termination protection is inhibiting the user to delete that stack if they're unintentionally deleting stuff, which might happen. Sometimes it happens. Okay, so now let's go and let's create that template. Specify the T2 micro, and I didn't, so I should do this right now. So I just skipped over this too quickly. I didn't show you the parameters. The parameters in here are the instance type. This is the parameters that we've chosen, and now I can pick my my instance I want to launch. Let's just pick the micro one. I can pick a key name. It's going to be giving me one of my keys that's available, and also the SSH location, which I'll leave as default. Now we're able to execute the whole thing. And it's going to create, and of course we will see all of the parameters that we've specified. We will see the template that we used, and we'll see the outputs once they're done. Okay, so far, regarding the usage of all of those parameters and mappings and all that stuff. Okay, now let's go back again to our presentation. So this is what we've done, right? So we just created one of those environments that can scale differently depending on if it's in a production or in a development environment. The change set is something that I already showed you in the demo. So you create your stack, you create a change set, and then you can first view and inspect the changes before going to execute. As I said, CloudFormation might be very aggressive in terms of what it deletes. So we have to look for those, replacement flags equals true, because otherwise it's going to delete your database, for example. Database have got a different deletion policies. Their policy deletion is first state snapshot, then delete the database. But you can also change this to retain the database completely if you wish to. And we will see how to do this in just a second using a different mechanism. And the mechanism is using layers of architecture. So we'll use a different layer for a different part of CloudFormation stack. So for example, the identity team, this might be a security team or administrators, they would be providing your users, user groups, and roles in their own IAM CloudFormation script. And then the networking guys would build on top of that and would provision all of the VPC stuff. And then all of the rest of the would build on top of this. So you would probably have a database that is not included in your front end. So your database would be somewhere in the back end, and then this would be protected from deletion by just doing it this way. Now you will have a layered cake. Basically, you could be using this completely independently from each other, or you could be passing parameters to each of these. There is a so-called exports option where you can export your parameters and your outputs between the stacks. So this is one of the advanced features that they have available. And I think this is really a neat one because now you can use reuse those outputs in other templates. You can also nest templates. So this is how you would nest a template. So one of the resources that you create when you nest stacks is a so-called CloudFormation stack. So you are creating a stack within your stack. So now we are in a stack and we're creating another stack with this template URL, which is in S3. So this is where it's available. And passing those two parameters into the URL. And this is how to start nesting stacks. So you can build a stack on top of the other stack, and you can also share parameters and also receive back the outputs. All right. Let's go back to our presentation again. Now, so how to build your. There's also another way of doing stuff is by using those quick starts. Quick starts are standardized templates that are curated by the AWS Solutions Architect teams. These are gold standard deployments into the cloud, so they are prepared nicely. They've got all the bells and whistles installed. All the conditions are set correctly, and they are built on top of best practices for security and high availability. They create entire architectures in a very short time, and they're great for experimentation and building stuff off. So you just take templates and provide some scripts if necessary, and then you bootstrap the whole environment. And let's just have a look into one of these so that you know what I'm talking about. And okay, let's just go and do AWS. And there we go. Now you've got all of these solutions built by some are built by the companies like AWS, so that's a internal thing. Some are built by the companies themselves, combined with AWS. So you're sure that this is really the best of what they can do together. So for example, if you want to launch SAP HANA in your backend, this is how you'd go about this. These are very complex solutions. I wanted to show you one of the more usual ones, like the VPC, for example. This is going to be your network where you want to build all of your resources into. This could be your base stack that you want to work on. You can see here, that's that's the environment that you're going to create. Multi-AZ, that's the AZ multi-subnet environment where you've got public and private subnets. And this template is going to create everything that you need in a highly secure manner. You get your internet gateway, your net gateways, and all combined together. And you put in a lot of parameters. So which subnet to use, which IP address to choose. So it's very cool and a very good starting point. Also, if you're interested into building a more secure environment, you can go here and say PCI for processing credit card information. I've got a PCI DSS example down here where you see how they are, how they want you to build the environments in order to be credited, to be audited by the PCI DSS scenario. So this is what they recommend on you doing. So, have a separate management VPC, being VPC peered for your production environment, having all the checks and bells and whistles in place, like, watch alarms. Something is happening inside an environment. You need to quickly see this. CloudTrail, who's doing what in your environment. Configure rules, how are these instances and all the stuff changing over time? Who did what at what point in time? This is a good way to have a nice starting point. Also, going back to the documentation once again, I found that screen again. Now let's have it open. AWS. So if you look into the whole documentation, you will get, you will see how to work with templates, how to work with stacks, best practices on how you should plan and organize, create templates, manage your stacks. You also get a lot of sample templates that you can choose from. So for example, here in Frankfurt, application frameworks, if you want to have a LAMP stack or Ruby on Rails and stuff like that, when you're working with templates, you will see, you know, snippets. So for example, let's say you want to add in some Lambda stuff or some IAM stuff, you know, you just, you know, say, okay, we need to bring in some DynamoDB stuff, right? And that's how a DynamoDB table creation should be done. So if you want to create a table, you specify the table name, you specify, you know, all of the attributes, and all of the write capacity units and all the stuff that needs to be specified for a DynamoDB table, and off you go, right? So this is how you would use your snippets. It's an easy way to build stuff. And yeah, basically, let's go back to the slides. And we are at the end of the material. So yeah, I hope you had some fun. You learned something today. As I said, I wanted to advertise one of our trainings. So if you want to go for developing on AWS or for architecting on AWS, you can go with you should go with Fastlane. I'm a trainer there, so feel free to book us. It's available worldwide. Also, I want to advertise for our next webinars that we want to have. We do have additional webinars that are running on next Friday, going serverless with AWS Lambda. If you're interested in doing, you know, computing without having to provision EC2 resources, instances. And in 2 weeks, we're gonna have the VPC, the networking specialty event. You can register for just the same way that you did for this one here. Okay, so if you get any more questions, it's good. Otherwise, I'll say thank you very much for being here. Have a nice weekend, and hope to see you again soon in one of the next webinars that we are doing.